Alright guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're enjoying your day so far, and today we're going to talk about the meta here in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Over these last few days since the Season 1 patch update has dropped, things have been changing very quickly indeed, with a Krig actually getting nerfed somewhat, the AK-47 still potentially very viable, even amateur players looking to gentleman's agreement it out of the meta in its entirety. But then there is the question around the flex weapon in the game. The 74U clearly the dominant SMG, other SMGs potentially also viable, but maybe on the chopping block in terms of gentleman's agreements, as we talked about the KSP just yesterday. But in terms of a flex gun, is the AK-47 the best? Is the FFAR the best? Is the XM4 the best? That's what we're going to talk about today. A number of pros using the XM4, the M4 effectively from Call of Duty Modern Warfare and previous games. Looks like it might be very viable in this game right now. A little bit of a questionable recoil pattern in my opinion, but certainly a very viable gun in terms of the pure time to kill. Intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you are new as always, I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. This, first of all, of course, for Formal, because Formal has been one of the main assault rifles using the XM4 to great effect these last few days. Pretty interesting to see, given the fact that in terms of a main assault rifle, as Octane's going to talk about here in just a second, he feels like the Krig is still the best one to be used for the main assault rifle. But in terms of your second assault rifle, your kind of flex player on the team, the XM4 could be the go-to from now on. So it was Formal's birthday yesterday. Happy birthday to my duo, says Scump. He turned 26 today, but goodness, his gunny is 19. And as Formal says, 26 today. So yeah, pretty remarkable stuff how well time does indeed fly. And well, this I thought was actually pretty interesting as well in relation to, well, Formal's birthday being yesterday. This guy Calhoun, so this guy is, well, the same as this guy. So June Calhoun, I think he plays a lot of Wages and Warzone and stuff like this on Twitch, but he's also a pretty prominent baseball player, and yesterday he tweets this out, sent this kid Formal $1,000, he said, I got you in 2 days, now it's been 2 months, so yeah, certainly there was some discussion as to, well, why hasn't Formal paid this guy back, why does he even need to lend him money, I don't really know, not really something I want to get into, but I thought it was pretty interesting given that we were discussing Formal. People were pointing this out to me yesterday on the timeline, and then he comes out a couple of hours saying later, look, the situation I tweeted about earlier is now been resolved, no bad blood between anyone involved, all love, all this kind of good stuff. So moving on from that one then, we then get this a few days ago. Call of Duty, of course, released the Groza and the MaTG into the game. The Groza is a weapon which, well, some people are actually saying could be viable in terms of this flex role, so maybe stay tuned for that one, because the MaTG certainly has been dominating the Warzone scene, but also as we saw Doug Spencer Martin having decent success with it a couple of days ago in the professional side, in the competitive side as well. So certainly the MaTG could be viable, especially on a map like Crossroads, as we said at the time, but now it looks like Crossroads has been effectively gentleman's agreemented out of the map set, the pros deciding they do not want to play it for the upcoming season, especially, well, due to some questionable spawns that I might show you guys right at the end of the video here. But yes, the Groza, the MaTG in the game, this of course came alongside a number of, well, patch updates to the game. So the Krig, the headshot multiplier, was nerfed from 1.4 to 1.3. Doesn't seem like a particularly big deal. Maybe it was 1.4 to 1.2, not exactly sure, but effectively it meant that you can no longer get a 4-shot kill with 3 body shots and 1 headshot. Now it has to be 2 body shots, 2 headshots, and well, certainly is still a very good weapon. It doesn't recoil like at all, so it's very comfortable to be used at long range, but in terms of that kind of mid-range kind of combat, where a lot of the time you would be maybe aiming for, aiming for headshots off head glitches and this type of stuff, it's no longer going to be quite as effective at that range, which maybe opens the door to another weapon like the XM4, which is always going to be a 5-shot. I think if you throw a couple of headshots in, it does go down to a 4-shot as well. So the XM4 may even take over from the Krig in certain ranges, even though the Krig probably still going to dominate as your main assault rifle long range on a map like Moscow, for example, but the XM4 could certainly be viable, and well, it's great to see, honestly, that so many ARs potentially are viable right now, and who knows at some point whether the Groza will, well, be realized into the meta. So Octane did a video yesterday, appreciate you guys, the meta has shifted again at Black Ops Cold War, using the XM4 in this one and showing off what class setup he is using. So, well, I'll share a couple of clips from this video where he talks about how he definitely thinks the XM4 could be viable in competitive play, especially in that kind of flex role, and as he says later on in the video that he told gunlers to try out the FFAR, which some players like Dashy and co have been having good success with, and gunless effectively says, look, the FFAR is nowhere near as good as people crack it up to be, and well, the XM4 is certainly the way to go in terms of a flex assault rifle. And a team like Seattle Surge, for example, Octane probably maybe using the Krig, sometimes the XM4, who really knows? I mean, given how good Octane was with the ICR, for example, in a game like Black Ops 4, makes sense, maybe he would go back towards the Krig, but the XM4 potentially is that flex weapon that gunless could use in certain situations, and then of course Pristini and Looney on the AK-74Us, that's well, certainly something which I imagine a lot of pro teams are looking to, well, implement right now. So I'll share the clips on screen.
Alrighty guys, you know me, I don't like to beat around the bush when it comes to the YouTube titles. I'm just going to answer it straight out. Do I think that the M4 is a viable weapon. Do I think that it will be used in the meta? And the answer to that question is yes. I do believe that the M4 will be used. You know, a bunch of pro teams have been trying it out. I think every pro team has been trying it out, to be honest with you. The first day that the patch dropped, we scrimmed New York, and I want to say that it was Clay that was using it and actually doing pretty well. So if you guys want to give it a shot, I don't think that it's going to be a main AR-esque weapon. Even though, you know, me, Clay, and a bunch of other people have been trying it out, I don't think that it's going to slot into that main AR role very, very well. The Krig is still going to be the weapon of choice for mid ARs, in my opinion. The gun just has no recoil, and it is just by far and away the best gun at distance. And I think that that is a far more valuable trait. So if you guys think the M4, or if I think the M4 is an NC play rather, I think it's going to be in that MattX role, that flex slot. I wanted to make an FFAR video because I actually think that the FFAR isn't horrible again. Because, you know, thank God they buffed it, because that thing was just the worst gun in the world. And I tried it in scrims, or I told Pierce to try it in scrims rather, because, you know, I'm sure as hell wasn't going to use that thing. And Pierce said that it was like the worst gun ever and to actually never try it. So unfortunately, I think the FFAR might be ass, guys. Again, I wanted to make a video on it. I was actually looking forward to making a video on it, but I was told by Large P that it is just a dog gun, so
I thought I'd run through Octane's class as well if you guys aren't too familiar with it. If he's using the mill-stop reflex, interesting to me the difference really, because I've been using the microflex LED. A lot of people going back to the mill-stop now, so certainly a lot of personal preference going on here. But yeah, I think this red dot is kind of more like the Black Ops 1 red dot. The microflex is kind of more like the Black Ops 3 red dot maybe. So yeah, obviously it's personal preference certainly, but obviously a lot of players using an OpTic. The iron sights and a lot of these weapons aren't too particularly pretty. So yeah, 5 attachments on this one. You got the mill-stop reflex as one. The second one is the extended barrel. This is really where Octane said you could kind of go either way between the extended and the takedown. From my perspective, the range on the XM4 is honestly pretty damn good. It's the bullet velocity which kind of, well, is a bit of an issue on this weapon. So I definitely think the extended is the way to go. Extends out that bullet velocity. I'm pretty sure it doubles it. And yeah, bullet velocity in this game is very much an important factor. Unfortunately, bullet velocity is still a thing. I wish we didn't really have to talk about projectiles, but given Warzone is a thing now, they're pretty much introducing it into every single game rather than just kind of hit scan. And so you guys will remember, I'm sure, like back in a Black Ops 4, for example, when the Sorg, the SMG, the entire year was as a projectile weapon, and then towards the end they made it a hit scan, and it became very, very solid indeed. And that's kind of the thing that happens when you increase your bullet velocity. You make your gun more and more like a hit scan. So that's definitely something that a lot of players are using attachments for. So yeah, definitely the extended I think is the way to go, but this is probably the one where you can switch it up a little bit. And then the final three are pretty much what everyone uses. So the field agent grip, then in terms of the handle, the airborne elastic wrap, this is the one that allows you to drop shots, has a couple of other nice benefits as well. And then the Raider pad stock as well, allowing you to ADS strafe a little bit, well, more quickly than you would with other weapons. But yeah, as Octane said, look, certainly he believes this weapon could be viable, with the FFAR maybe not looking so good in certain situations. The XM4 could be the one to step up to the plate. It's pretty interesting to me to see that, look, Formal's been using this a lot. Clearly, Octane's been using it a lot in scrims. He was talking in the video about how he really enjoys when the meta changes to some degree. He gets to use something else in scrims. And a lot of these maps are relatively close range, so I can certainly see the XM4 having, well, some positive benefits. At the same time, the recoil to me is a little bit funky. It is mainly vertical, so it can be controlled, but the little bit of side-to-side kick makes it a little bit more annoying to me to use than something like the 47, the AK-47, that being, or the Krig. But yeah, I'm intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below if you guys have been trying this out, how much success you've had with the XM4, and well, whether you think it could be viable on the professional level. And I think Formal was using it as well, but this is what happened a few days ago. So the AK-47, they reduced their headshot multiplier. That really didn't have too much of an impact on that weapon though. It's really the Krig that had the major nerf to it, as we talked about a couple of minutes ago. And then the FFAR, they did once again increase the damage ranges and reduce the recoil somewhat, but well, Gunner certainly doesn't think it's still viable, but Dashy is having good success. So maybe right now we could be in for a great meta. I talked about this a few videos ago, the idea that, okay, if we're only going to have one SMG, maybe it is the 74U, but there's certainly still some other ones potentially viable out there that may not be tried yet. I mean, the Milano was being tried, pretty much every SMG was being tried, and pretty much every assault rifle right now is being tried in one form or another. And it's nice to see the fact that we may have a meta which is determined based on personal preference rather than just necessarily what happens to be just statistically the best gun like it was in Modern Warfare with the M4. And this time the M4 doesn't seem to be necessarily the best gun, but in certain situations it may be viable because it doesn't have a 4-shot kill range like the AK-47 does. It's kind of a 5-shot kill like the Krig, but you can get 4 shots if you throw some headshots into the mix, so it's certainly still viable. But I think personal preference does play a big factor here, and that's certainly an exciting thing to see for the meta going forwards. This also is what Formal was using, so he was using the extended barrel on it. He had a lot of attachments on this one as well, so he was kind of using the 7 attachment thing without the steady aim laser, because I think that's gentleman's agreemented right now. Tough to keep up with all the GAs that are going on these last couple of days. But yeah, Formal certainly was one of the first to be using this in scrims. I think Clayster was using it as well, and I do wonder whether they'll kind of go back to the Krig at some point, given that maybe they're trying this out for a little bit, realize that, okay, the Krig is a laser beam and maybe better on certain maps, certain situations, but yeah, the XM4 could certainly be viable, as Octane is discussing. Thought I'd mention this as well, that I thought was kind of interesting, because in terms of how the meta is shaping up this season, I kind of split FaZe and Dallas into, well, what the roles look like, as it's pretty clear to see that Simp and Abizi, Shotzzy and Hook are going to be like the 2 SMGs on the team. I imagine that's kind of how the meta looks like right now. Probably 2 74Us, possibly the entry SMG could even have a different weapon if that makes more sense. Something like the MP5 could still be viable in certain situations, but the 74U seems to be dominant for now. Then you've got your flex player, who could be using an AK-47, could be using an FFAR, could be using just a straight up Krig, and if your main assault rifle is also using a Krig, or the XM4 could be the viable weapon here. Within the main AR is probably tend to be using the Krig still. I think RCTs has certainly still been liking that weapon, but there's plenty of other weapons which are viable in the game state, and I'm very intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below. Do you think additional tweaking needs to be made? I think certainly in terms of the tactical rifles, people would like to see them nerfed even further than they already have been, because they really didn't get nerfed very much at all, and well, it would be great to see that in my opinion, and maybe at some point we get something like the M16 could even be viable in addition in competitive play, because in previous titles tends to have been without a burst weapon, not for the last couple of years, but certainly in the past we've had burst rifles being like well, some of the more dominant assault rifles in the game. This year they're just way too strong to even be used at that level, and well, maybe if they get nerfed to a significant degree, we might get to a point where even an M16 or an AUG become viable in competitive in addition to these other assault rifles we are seeing, and then we could have a really crazy diverse meta, which well, would be great to see. At the end of the day, if we can get to the point where personal preference decides what assault rifles people are using, then well, we really have hit the nail on the head for the meta, like I think we did back in Black Ops 3, like Treg managed to do, even though Ban and Protect was in that game, so there was certainly that was certainly a reason for it. But even without Ban and Protect, people would have used the HVK, the Man of War, all these different assault rifles regardless. The only one that wasn't used in that game was, well, whatever the AK-47 was called, the KN-42 or something like that, but pretty much every other weapon was used by some players at some point. Certainly intrigued to hear your thoughts on this down in the comment section below. The other question mark really is, are some of these weapons going to get GA'd? It seems like a lot of the gentleman's agreements come from the more veteran players on the team, which tend to potentially be assault rifle players, which may contribute to the fact that sometimes SMGs seem to be living in an AR's world, but there is still the question mark here around, well, the AK-47 is actually going to be too strong, certainly, well, not being used in the North American Challenger side for now, and if that's out, certainly I think the XM4 has its place in the game, but certainly intrigued to hear your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. Really helps out the YouTube algorithm with them know you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and help grow the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always, take care, and I will see you next time.